After an 18-month-long shutdown, Ethiopian Airlines has resumed commercial flights to and from Mekele, the capital of the Tigray Region, on Wednesday. The reintroduction of flights to and from Mekele is one of the many first steps towards peace in the region. I'm now joined by Maebel Gebremedhin, co-founder of Tigray Action Committee. Maebel, good to speak to you. It's been a few months since our last conversation. Now, a headline that I saw says tears, prayers as flights resume. Does this kind of sum up the mood at the moment in Ethiopia, or certainly in Tigray?
It would, yes. There's a lot of tears currently in Tigray and for Tigrayans throughout the world, Ethiopians everywhere. There's a bit of hope. There's some shock and confusion, but it's a new day, it seems.
So unpack for us, hope obviously is pretty clear that everyone is hoping that fighting does not resume. Where does the confusion come in?
Well, I think we were all just stunned by the quickness of everything. The majority of Tigray is still under siege. The majority of Tigrayans living in Tigray are not able to receive aid. They are still being attacked. Women are being re-raped. Eritrean forces still are very much within Tigray's borders and causing a lot of mayhem and catastrophe. And so knowing that's happening and then hearing that flights are going into Mekele, which is the capital city of Tigray, it's very confusing. And so, especially for people who are outside of Tigray, we're confused because the majority of our families don't live in the capital city of Tigray. For me, for instance, my family doesn't really live in Mekele. So hearing that a flight is able to go in and out of Mekele, whereas the rest of Tigray is still suffering from the same issues that's been going on for over 2 years now, it's very confusing.
Now, is the expectation for all the war or elements of war to end almost immediately, almost like severed, or do we expect a process?
I think we expect a process. We understand. Tigrayans are people who understand quickly, but we understand that peace process takes time. I think the confusion is that the cessation of hostilities agreement that was signed on November 2nd, it didn't necessarily have a timeline for everything, and so seeing the process of this is very confusing. For flights to be able to come in with people who bought tickets to see their family in Mekele before aid is able to get in or before the war is officially ended is confusing, if that makes any sense. If the majority of Tigrayans are still suffering, women are being targeted and re-raped because they went to go look for some sort of aid after being raped some months before by Eritrean forces. And so knowing these things and yet flights are able to go in and out of the capital, it's incredibly confusing. Although we get that it's a process and it will take time, we would assume, I think most of the world would assume, that before people are able to purchase flights to go visit their families in the capital city, they would confirm that the rest of Tigray is safe and the peace process has begun everywhere else as well instead of just in one city.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the emotion around all that's transpired. I know in our last conversation you said you hadn't spoken to some of your family, I think in close to 18 months or 2 years. And I'd imagine that there are millions of others who haven't done the same, who are now potentially able to fly out to Tigray or Mekele and see their family, hold their family, and hopefully their family members are still living. What is that emotion like? What are the emotions that you are going through, and obviously many of your countrymen and women?
I think it's mixed. I think that the emotion is very, very mixed. It's a lot of despair, a lot of heartbreak. The Tigrayans who are actually able to call and get a hold of some of their family members have heard some really heartbreaking stories. The diaspora has been trying to prepare ourselves this entire time for when we are able to speak to our families because we know what horror is going to come our way. Sometimes we say it might have been better to actually be in Tigray and process it as it was happening rather than sit and wait for the news to hit you a year and a half later. But those stories are starting to come out. I still have not been able to speak to my family members. So others have, though, and those stories have been very, very horrific. People have talked about the majority of their families being wiped out. People have tried calling family members and had strangers pick up their phones saying that they found this SIM card a year ago and are just answering now. So not everybody's been able to speak to their family just yet. there has been some stories of being able to speak to grandmothers and grandparents and hearing their voices and feeling joyful. There's that as well. So it's a very, very mixed time right now. There's a lot of heartbreak. And I think soon the processing will be able to start for the majority of us. We have not been able to process what is happening to us or our families because we're in the midst of it. We're still in the fire of it. And so once I think things have calmed down a little bit and we're actually able to communicate with our loved ones, the processing will start. And I think that's when it'll really hit us what we've experienced for the past 2 and some years.
Well, I don't doubt that the trauma that people are feeling is palpable at this point. Now, do you see a sudden flight of Tigrayans coming out of that region to other areas where their safety might be a lot more secure than hoping for this peace deal to hold? And that's if it holds. What are your opinions on that?
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine that would be the case. Tigrayans living in Tigray have not felt safe for more than 2 years. They didn't feel safe before the genocide started. And so being under the same prime minister, the same government, the Ethiopian PP party, Prosperity Party, still holding office and knowing that that's your government who is supposed to take care of you, but has also been the government that has been killing you and raping you and starving you, you're not going to feel safe. And so I would imagine there will be a huge wave of Tigrayans leaving Tigray and most likely leaving Ethiopia just due to the lack of safety that they've experienced during this time. Absolutely.
Do you expect this peace deal to hold, though?
I would hope so. I'm really hoping that, my organization has been fighting for peace for Tigrayans the entire time that we've been around. And so I really hope that it does. But I know that peace, for it to be sustainable, it has to come through accountability and justice. And without any accountability, there is no justice. Without any justice, there is no peace. And right now, with the cessation of hostility agreements, it does not mention any form of accountability. The only accountability that is there is that the Ethiopian government will hold itself accountable, which is not something that is logical. We never ask abusers to hold themselves accountable because once they do, they are allowed to continue abusing. And so if we allow the Ethiopian government to hold itself accountable, then they are able to do what they've been doing. And in fact, because of that, they're doing it to other Ethiopians. They're doing it to Ethiopians in Oromia. They're doing it to Ethiopians in different states within Ethiopia. And so what they've learned in Tigray, they're learning that no one is holding them accountable. There is no justice. They can do whatever they want, so they'll do it to others as well. And so being that the cessation of hostilities agreements has no real accountability measures or safety measures for Tigrayans, I am concerned that it won't hold. My hope is that it will hold because Tigrayans need peace. We don't need any more war. Nobody needs war. No Africans at this point need war. We've experienced more than enough of heartache and death and violence. And so my hope is that the peace agreement holds, but I do have a lot of concerns.
You obviously speak with a lot of sadness, and I do understand that. But let's try and find some positives from all of this. I mean, we've talked about the speed that shocked you, with which all of this has come together. How much of that is a positive, and what else from that peace deal are certain things that we can look forward to, whilst obviously the balance of issues are taken care of? Yeah,
I do have hope. I'm sorry to speak of sadness and whatnot. It's just that is really where we are as Tigrayans. We're very sad. We're very, very, very sad. But there is hope that this is done. There is hope that, that I will be able to see my family, of whoever is remaining, that I will be able to actually catch a flight. I don't think I'd be able to catch an Ethiopian Airlines flight because of the amount of they assisted in creating this genocide and causing a lot of death to Tigrayans. And so that is not something I'm interested in, but I am interested and hopeful that I will be able to speak to my family soon and that I will be able to see them. And I know that there are Tigrayans who actually were able to do that recently, and that's wonderful. And I hope that for all of us, to be able to go home and kiss the ground that you are from is such a luxury. And seeing those photos come out was incredibly touching. And so I hope that for all of us, I really do hope to be able to kiss Tigray. That would be amazing. That'd be amazing.
Maebel, we certainly hope the best for you and certainly your relatives. But finally, before we let you go, just walk us through that journey of engagement, the process that you are going through in trying to reach out to your family members. What does it look like?
Yeah, so right now we are hearing that phone lines are open in one area and then possibly the next area. And so whenever we hear that, we think of family members that could possibly be there. And so we'll call old phone numbers and see if it'll connect. We are buying as much credit on phone cards as we can, putting as much money on Skype as we can to get through, and just hoping that someone will answer. And then when they do, it's Christmas all over again. Christmas on the West is December 25th, but Christmas in Tigray, in our calendar, is January 7th. And so we are really, truly hoping that we'll be able to speak to our grandmothers on January 7th. That would be the best Christmas gift. To be able to hear my father's voice on Christmas would be amazing. And so I'm truly, truly hoping that's the case. But right now what Tigrayans are doing are going back through their phone books. I'm sure most of them have them saved or starred as under their favorites, and calling all the numbers that they had saved and hoping to hear a family member's voice.
Finally, I'm going to have to ask, are there many groups that have been set up, whether it's WhatsApp groups or on social media to help in this process? Because I'd imagine that there are hundreds of thousands of Tigrayans that are looking to reach out to their family members, and any bit of information would be useful.
Yes, actually. One of the things that Tigrayans first did in the diaspora was find each other. And so I live in New York, and I was completely unaware of the amount of Tigrayans that were in New York. I had no idea. And so once the genocide started in 2020 on November 4th, we all started going on social media and looking for each other. Are you Tigrayan? Do you live here? Whatnot. Social media pages were started saying, hey, this is for Tigrayans living in this area. Come find me. And so a lot of us started group chats and Facebook pages and GroupMe pages, like different pages, where we can all communicate with each other, and have kept those up for the past 2.5 years, 2 and some years now. And so those have been a flutter of, oh, I was able to get through to this person, or I tried calling my dad, it didn't go through, or did you speak to this? And so we've all been communicating with each other to see if, just checking in, were you able to talk to anyone yet? And what did they say? So yeah, that's definitely happening.
Okay, thumbs up for you. Appreciate your time, Maebel. Gebremedhin, co-founder of Tigray Action Committee.